ready to discover how Chicago's defense plans to crush the rookie QB in their debut under the Soldier Field lights? Dennis Allen has a plan so brutal it might send a rookie straight into an M&F abyss. But it all crumbles if a key injury. Player doesn't hit the field. Can our backups prevent Minnesota from making this a shootout? And wait, Detroit is collapsing. Their offensive line is fresh meat for Dexter and Billings. Ready to find out how this week could define the whole season? Are you ready to see J.J. McCarthy completely lost in his Monday Night Football debut? Because let me tell you, Dennis Allen has a plan so brilliant, it could make this rookie quarterback look like an amateur in his first professional game. But before I explain exactly why this strategy is revolutionary, let me set the stage for what's happening here. McCarthy isn't just any rookie, folks. This kid comes from Michigan, where he rarely faced extreme pressure situations because the Wolverines usually dominated from the first quarter and then relied on their ground game. But you know what? Monday Night Football against Chicago, Soldier Field is going to be a completely different experience. What makes this strategy so devastating? Allen isn't going to rely on traditional blitzes like everyone expects. No, folks, he's going to use disguised coverages that are going to confuse McCarthy so much he won't even know where he's standing. And you know why this is great for Chicago? Because while Brian Flores in Minnesota is training his players against blitzes all the time, we're going to attack their weakest point, the inexperience of reading complex defenses. Here's the genius of Allen's plan, and this has me super excited. He's going to show a pre-snap coverage that's going to make McCarthy think he has an obvious advantage. Maybe a simple cover 2. But after the snap, it'll fully rotate into something totally different. Like a cover 3 match or even a robber. Coverage where a linebacker is going to be waiting right in the route McCarthy thought was open. Can you imagine what this will do to a rookie mentally? McCarthy is going to make his pre-snap reads, see what he thinks is a clear advantage, make the decision where to throw the ball, and when he throws it, he's going to meet a defender who wasn't supposed to be there. That's going to break his confidence immediately. But do you think it's a coincidence Allen is implementing now? I think he knows exactly what. Allen has been studying McCarthy's tape since he was drafted and has identified exactly what his weaknesses are. McCarthy tends to make quick decisions based on pre-snap reads, which was perfect in college where defenses are more predictable, but in the NFL this can be deadly. Let me tell you something more specific about what Allen is probably going to do. In the first plays of the game, he's going to show very simple coverages and let McCarthy complete some easy passes to build false confidence. But as soon as McCarthy starts feeling comfortable, Allen will start showing the same pre-snap coverage and rotate into something completely different post-snap. And you know what's the smartest part of all this? Allen is going to use Kevin Byard as the secret weapon. Byard has the experience and football intelligence to execute these rotations perfectly. He's going to start by showing as a deep high safety, but after the snap, he'll aggressively drop down to cover intermediate routes where McCarthy doesn't expect him. The truth. The combination of Monday Night Football lights playing in enemy territory against a divisional rival with the whole country watching, plus Allen's disguised coverages, is going to create a perfect storm to shatter McCarthy's confidence from the first drive. But there's something else that I'm really excited about. Allen isn't just going to confuse McCarthy with the coverages, he's also going to use pre-snap movements that will make the rookie think pressure is coming when it isn't and think no pressure is coming when it actually is. This is called pressure mirages and is something the best defensive coordinators use to keep quarterbacks guessing. Can you imagine, after years of watching our defensive coordinators play predictably, aren't you excited to have someone who really understands how to break a quarterback's confidence from the first snap? McCarthy is already going to be nervous playing at Soldier Field under the Monday Night Football lights. And when Allen starts showing one thing and doing something completely different, that quarterback is going to collapse. And here's the cherry on the cake, folks. Allen knows Minnesota has incredible weapons like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. But if McCarthy can't identify coverages correctly, it doesn't matter how good his receivers are. He's going to be throwing the ball to the wrong places or hesitating so much that he'll take unnecessary sacks. If that surprises you, wait, no way! Kyler Gordon is questionable for the most important game of the season, and this could be absolutely devastating for our defensive plan. Let me tell you this, folks. If Gordon can't play, The whole scheme we just mentioned could go down the drain. But before panicking, let me explain exactly why Gordon's situation is so critical and why this could completely change Dennis Allen's strategy for Monday Night Football. But do you know what the real problem here is? Gordon isn't just our slot cornerback. He's literally the key to our entire secondary. Kevin Byard himself said he's one of the most athletic defenders he's ever played with. He can cover corner, nickel, and safety. And now, it turns out, we might lose him due to hamstring issues that have bothered him all August. Let me put in perspective what losing Kyler Gordon really means. This guy isn't just another defensive back. Gordon is the kind of player Allen can move all over the field to create specific advantages. Need extra pressure? Gordon can blitz from the slot. Need deep coverage? Gordon can play safety. Need to neutralize a tight end in the middle of the field? Gordon is your man. Gordon's versatility is what allows Allen to be so creative with his disguised coverages. When you have a player who can do multiple jobs within the same play, you can confuse opposing quarterbacks in ways that just aren't possible with more limited players. Do you realize what this means? If Gordon is out and Josh Blackwell is also questionable with a groin injury, and Jaylon Johnson hasn't even had a full practice this year, we might end up with Nahshon Wright on the field. And do you remember what happened in the preseason game against Kansas City when Wright played against the starters? It was an absolute disaster. But let me be more specific about why Wright is such a big problem. In that game against Kansas City, Wright was completely burned multiple times. He couldn't keep up with the receivers, got lost in coverages, and showed a lack of instincts, which is concerning for a player who might have to play significant minutes. And do you know what's even more worrying? Wright doesn't have Gordon's versatility. If Wright is on the field, Allen will be limited in what coverages he can use. He won't be able to do those complex rotations because Wright simply doesn't have the experience or skills to execute them correctly. Here's where the situation gets really complicated. Ryan Poles, our general manager, has specifically said he was excited to see the secondary fully healthy for the opener. He mentioned that during the entire camp, they never had all the defensive backs healthy at the same time, and that had been uncomfortable for the cornerback position. But now what do we have? Exactly the same situation Poles wanted to avoid. A fragmented secondary right before the most important game of the year. Can I ask you, how is it possible that our greatest strength has become our biggest question mark just before the opener? This means Montez Sweat and Daya Odeyingbo are going to have to generate immediate pressure, because if not, McCarthy is going to have all the time in the world to find his receivers. And here is the biggest problem of all. If we can't generate pressure with our pass rush and our secondary is compromised, then all those disguised coverages we mentioned in the first news are going to be much effective. The defensive backs need time to execute those post-snap rotations, and if they're struggling just to keep up with the receivers, they won't be able to make those complex moves. But you know what? There's a scenario where this might not be so bad. If Gordon can play, albeit limited, Allen might use him in specific packages for critical situations. Maybe Gordon can't play all the snaps, but he could come in on third downs or red zone situations where his versatility is more valuable. The other option is Allen simplifies his defensive scheme for this week. Instead of using all those complex coverages, they might rely more on direct blitzes and simpler coverages that their backup defensive backs can execute without problems. But do you know what more? If Gordon can't play, and we have to use players like Nick McLeod, in the slot, McCarthy might have more success than we expected. McLeod doesn't have the slot experience that Gordon does, and that might be exactly what Minnesota needs to move the ball consistently. The reality is that pregame workouts are going to be critical to determine who can play and who cannot. Allen is going to have to make last-minute adjustments based on who is available, and that could affect the whole game plan. But here comes the really crazy. Detroit Lions are completely destroyed, and I believe this is the best possible news for us heading into Week 2. While everyone is talking about their loss of Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator, the real bombshell is that their offensive line is 60% different from. But let me explain exactly why what happened in Green Bay on Sunday is a massive alarm for Detroit, and why this represents a golden opportunity for the Bears. Do you understand what this means for Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, and Grady Jarrett? With Frank Ragnow retired, Kevin Zeitler gone via free agency, and Graham Glasgow moved to center, Detroit has rookies Christian Mahogany and Tate Ratledge as starting guards. They're completely exposed. But before celebrating, let me set the context for exactly how bad Detroit's performance against Green Bay was. This wasn't just a bad game. This was a full demonstration that without Ben Johnson, this offense doesn't know how to function. And do you know what was most impressive about the game against Green Bay? The Lions only rushed for 46 yards in the entire match. 46 yards, folks. A team that was supposed to have the best offensive line in the NFL couldn't move the ball on the ground against a Packers defense that lost Kenny Clark. But here's what really excites me about this. During the first 2 quarters, Detroit tried to run the ball 16 times and only got 48 yards. That's an average of 3 yards per carry, which is terrible by any standard, but especially for a team that was supposed to have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Do you know what this tells me? It tells me that the chemistry and synchronization of that offensive line are completely destroyed. Ragnar wasn't just a center, he was the leader of that line. He was the one making the protections, communicating the adjustments, making sure everyone was on the same page. Now they have Glasgow, who's only played center 40% of the time in his career, trying to fill those shoes. And on the sides, Mahogany and Ratledge, 2 rookies who are probably completely overwhelmed by the speed and complexity of the professional game. But this gets better because besides all this, their best cornerback Terrion Arnold injured his groin. Dan Campbell couldn't even give good news about his recovery. Let me tell you, if the Bears can capitalize on this, we might be seeing a massacre at Ford Field next week. Let me be more specific about the opportunities this creates for our defense. Dexter has been working all off-season to improve his interior game, and now he's going to face 2 rookie guards who were just exposed by a Green Bay defense that isn't exactly known for its interior pass rush. Can you imagine what Dexter can do against Mahogany and Ratledge? These guys have probably never faced someone with the speed and technique of Dexter. He's going to be able to use his favorite moves, those interior rips and those bull rushes he's been perfecting against players who simply don't have the experience to counter them. And Andrew Billings, who has been solid for us in running situations, is going to have a field day against Glasgow at center. Glasgow's a decent player, but moving him from his natural position to center against a nose tackle like Billings is going to be a nightmare for Detroit. But you know what's most interesting? New offensive coordinator John Morton tried to implement the same early run philosophy Ben Johnson used, but it simply didn't work. This tells me that the problem isn't just coordination, it's execution. The players can't physically do what the game plan requires. Morton was committed to the ground game in the first half, exactly as Johnson used to. But when it didn't work, he had to abandon it completely. This shows a lack of offensive identity and lack of confidence in their offensive line. And here's the part that really has me excited, folks. If Detroit can't run the ball effectively, they're going to have to rely entirely on Jared Goff and the passing game. But you know what happens when Goff is under constant pressure? He becomes very erratic, makes poor decisions, and tends to force passes he shouldn't throw. With Arnold injured, their secondary is also compromised, which means Caleb Williams and our receivers could have an amazing day. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze against the Detroit secondary without their best cornerback sounds like a recipe for an offensive explosion. But you know what really convinces me that we can dominate Detroit? The mentality. After being humiliated by Green Bay on national television, they're going to be desperate. And desperate teams make mistakes. They are going to try to force things that aren't there, take unnecessary risks, and that's going to create opportunities for our defense. And Micah Parsons, yes, the Packers got him in a trade, but he only got 1 sack in the last minutes when the game was already decided. This tells me even with Parsons, Green Bay couldn't generate consistent pressure against that broken Detroit offensive line. Can you imagine what we can do? The reality is Detroit is going to arrive at Ford Field next week with more questions than answers. Their offensive line is experimenting. Their offensive coordinator is trying to find their identity. Their best cornerback is injured, and their confidence is down the drain after being dominated by Green Bay. Now, let me ask you something direct. Do you think Dennis Allen can break McCarthy, even if Gordon is out? Comment below if you think our disguised coverages are going to be enough, or if we need Gordon on the field for it to work. And what do you think about Detroit's situation? I think Dexter and Billings are going to have the game of their lives against that makeshift offensive line. Do you agree, or do you think the Lions are going to find a way to adjust? But the most important question is this: after seeing how Detroit fell apart without Johnson and struggling with offensive line issues? Do you think Chicago finally has the chance to dominate this division? This Bears community is a family, folks, and we need to be united to analyze every play, every decision, every opportunity that comes our way. If you want to keep receiving exclusive analysis like this, analysis you won't find anywhere else, I need you to subscribe to the channel right now. Like, if you think Allen is going to destroy McCarthy, subscribe if you think we can exploit Detroit's weaknesses, and comment what you think the key to success will be this season. See you in the next video with more explosive news about our Bears. Bear down, Chicago. This is our season.